The more things change, the more they stay the same. While we are living in a wrestling world that is vastly different from one we may be used to, there are certain tropes that probably still remain merely because they went on for so long. You can never account for anything anymore, but the status quo still remains. That doesn't mean surprises don't happen. Look at Elias. Never really a hit down in NXT, he's one of the best call-ups period and continues to find more and more love as he goes from town to town. Did anybody think that would be the case when he was just walking in the background during other people's backstage skits? Doubtful. So while there is no tried and tested rule, if the sword of Damocles does fall and it's not too much of a surprise, that's history repeating itself, and we should have known. I'm Simon from WhatCulture, and this is 10 WWE superstars who were doomed from the start. Number 10, Austin Aries. The greatest man that ever lived has always been outspoken, be that from his time in Impact, NXT, or WWE. If he has something to say, he will say it. That's been the case ever since he did depart from Vince McMahon's company, and who knows what could have been. It began well enough after he bested Baron Corbin at NXT TakeOver Dallas, and he shone on commentary as he was recovering from an eye injury. But then he was moved to 205 Live. A difficult position anyway, because it's mostly used to quote-unquote house small wrestlers. Not even he and Neville could peek their head above the surface despite having some of the best matches you could have hoped for. Their WrestleMania clash wasn't even included on the Blu-ray. Not the best for somebody's confidence. It didn't change a damn thing, however, and because Aries had been tainted as a cruiserweight guy, he already had his ceiling. That wasn't enough for the dude, and given that creative decided they had nothing for him, his tenure with WWE was short-lived. Maybe that was the way it was always going to be. Number 9, Hideo Itami. A major score for the NXT brand when he signed, the former Kenta came in with all the fire possible. Those who knew what he'd done in Japan couldn't wait to see what he could do here, and he was so talented it wouldn't take long for those who didn't to understand the buzz. Then the injuries came, really knocking him off his perch and forcing him out the ring for long periods of time. Itami missed out when NXT was becoming a truly hot property. When he was ready to come back, it was almost as if all of that had passed him by. He wasn't able to find his place, so was moved across to 205 Live, and yes, we've said that once already, and we know the problem there. He's still as skilled as ever and knocks it out the park when he gets a chance, but once again, 205 Live has bigger problems that no performer can overcome, and it really isn't the position Hideo should be in. And yet there he lies, and I don't think it's likely he's going to get a Raw or SmackDown run anytime soon. Sad face. Number 8, Titus ONeil. This one makes less sense. Someone who surely is WWE gold through and through, Titus ONeil has never really found his way in the company since the Primetime Players broke up. Raw and SmackDown could use them right now. It also seems like he's the nicest and best person on the planet, so for that alone he deserves more. Maybe it was his difficult start which sealed his fate though. Suffering from being involved with the original concept of NXT, he foreshadowed 2018 by tripping up during a dumb game show like concept and kept having catchphrases shoved upon him. It's not really how it works. You've got to say something that resonates, not just say something constantly and hope people react. He was just painted as a bit of a goof because of the surroundings he found himself in, and that's always hard to move away from when the audience remembers. In that sense, he's actually done an amazing job staying relevant for as long as he has. Whether or not he ever appears on Raw again is up for debate, you just never know, but a championship run seems unlikely at this stage. Number 7, Batista 2014. So much went wrong with Batista's 2014 return that it was over before it began. The worst part was Big Dave had told WWE this was going to happen, and then it did. If only they had listened. Already cursed because he simply wasn't Daniel Bryan, Batista also walked through Alberto Del Rio with ease, which was nothing special 4 years ago, and also shared a moment of respect with then authority leader Triple H. Made sense, sure, they were evolution buddies, but it was another step that made fans go, well, screw that guy. It fell off a cliff as WWE continued to ignore the growing love for the Yes movement as the Animal took center stage, and that would have been fine if Batista hadn't been a face. But he was! Plus he was heading to a clash with Randy Orton, which everyone felt like they'd already seen. It all worked out as we know, but before Batista had even walked through the door, this plan was doomed. He was fighting an uphill battle he could never win. I do love the man though, he's just so pleasant. Number 6, the Giant Gonzales. Really, what I want to do here is just say he wore a muscle suit covered in hair and move on. But I feel like everyone would like more, so I'll give it to you. With the Undertakers needing more monsters to destroy so that he could maintain his powerful image, Vince McMahon went out there and got the biggest one he could find. After all, if Taker could take someone even more massive than he was out, everyone on the planet would chant the Phenom's name. Enter Giant Gonzales. Throwing Undertaker out of the 1993 Royal Rumble and then like an idiot eliminating himself by climbing over the top rope, Gonzales continued to whoop the dead man's ass, which sent a very specific message to the audience. This man is a threat and we should all take him very seriously. Again, however, he had fake hair glued onto his clothes. Aside from being really tall, there just wasn't that much to the man, which is probably why his WWE run only lasted 9 months. After that, what else do you do with him? He choked out Taker at WrestleMania with chloroform, which remains ludicrous to this day, and as soon as people had gotten used to him visually, he was out on his ass. It was always going to be the way. Number 5, Adam Bomb. Adam Bomb must have had something, as I still remember him to this day and did like him when I was a kid. Sure, he was a walk-in pun, but given that I didn't clock Paul Bear until I was an adult, somebody named after an explosive device was fine. It was the situation Bomb found himself in that was the issue. There was just no path for him to take. A classic big guy that Vince McMahon loved in the 80s and early 90s, he just did nothing. Adam had some pyro that was enjoyable, but outside of that it was as empty as can be. Plus he was a heel with his only strength being his actual size and strength. Okay, great. He fell fast too. While he took out Earthquake at WrestleMania 10 in a glorified squash match, there was nothing else to talk about. He would beat nobodies from time to time, but once this allure had worn off, he imploded, which was ironic, before heading over to WCW. Good thing he got that tattoo though, eh? Bet he never regretted that at all. Number 4, Bret Hart. My favourite wrestler of all time, Bret Hart wanted to not only be the best, but also ensure everyone else thought that too. I was won over, Vince McMahon wasn't, or at least not entirely. While there was a time where the chairman of the board did get behind the Hitman, he never actually truly saw what he had. Even Shawn Michaels jumped to Bret's defense in 1993 when shenanigans dominated the backstage scene to try and help Hart's cause, whereas Vince wanted to try and get a final tune out of Hulk Hogan and move Lex Luger up the card. By the time Hart had no old-fashioned obstacles left, he'd been usurped by the Heartbreak Kid himself, who had super kicked his way into McMahon's ear in a way the Hitman never did. Hart was the smoothest cog in a system designed to remind everyone what pro wrestling could be. It was only when he got trapped in the mechanism's slime did he finally realize the truth. He did crack his boss hard in the face as a receipt for all the nonsense he'd been put through, and a lot of that nonsense came even before the Montreal Screwjob. Number 3, Michael Cole. Since day one, Michael Cole has been required to take up the mantle of someone else before segueing into the role he commands today. It was hard enough for him to be the Attitude Era's Todd Pettengill before he was thrust into a lead commentary spot he wasn't ready for in 1998. Jim Ross's second Bell's palsy attack in December ruled him out for less than 6 months, but many never got over their irritations on Cole from that point onwards. This rage intensified when he was the beneficiary of a cruel gag at JR's expense, and the 2008 brand split saw the company promote and demote Cole and Ross respectively live on air. The fallout fell so hard on Michael, now the new Raw lead, that he eventually had to play a heel version of himself for over a year just to let the audience get it out of their system. In 2018, he's respected enough given that he has to navigate through and negotiate millions of tasks on any given Monday, but really because he's not JR and never will be, he's never been allowed to make the spot his own. Number 2, Bayley. I remember that before Bayley was called up to the main roster, a lot of people used to call her the female John Cena. She had a connection with children that few did, and that's money in the bank. If kids are invested in your wrestling career, you'll have longevity if nothing else. For some reason, however, ever since arriving on Raw, Bayley has never been booked or treated in the same way. Portrayed more like a child as opposed to being a hero children can look up to, the Hugger has gone from fan to fighting champion thanks to patient booking that tugged at multiple emotional threads to whatever she is now. At one time, she was a heart-on-her-sleeve wrestling fan that anyone who liked wrestling could get behind because her journey was so easy to understand. She wanted to make it, she put the work in, and eventually, yeah, she made it. It was artful, elegant, and real, attributes that seem to fall by the wayside when you do take a big step up. How we can get back from this I do not know, but I always hope that we do. Number 1, Finn Balor. Yes, the wrestler with the fastest main event push since Hulk Hogan has been met by doom. Having to hand over the Universal title the night after winning it in 2016 was the first chink in the armor, and when he was able to return, no one booked him to go after his belt, and that was ridiculous. From here, it was the usual picking away at the NXT bones. The Demon gimmick was seen as an afterthought as opposed to something that could have been worked into feuds, and clashing with Baron Corbin and being told he can't clash with Brock Lesnar just took this down a path I don't think anybody wanted, especially those who consider themselves loyal Balor Club members. The good thing about all things wrestling is that if WWE decide they want to push you to the moon, they will, and the past is soon forgotten, and as of right now, that's what's happened. Finn's been winning matches on Raw and finally has his scrap with the Beast. By the time you hear this, that may have already happened, so let's just hope once that is done, it's not back to the doldrums, and if so, I'm more than happy to be proven wrong. In fact, I yearn for it. Know of any other WWE superstars who were doomed from the start? Make sure you let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Then head over to WhatCulture.com and read yourself some articles, and follow WhatCulture on Twitter at WhatCulture WWE. My name is Simon from WhatCulture, and I will talk to you again soon.